What is up, YouTube? Me and Alex coming out here back for week 14 of the NFL season. Obviously, guys, this video is late. Just to fill you guys in before we get started, that we're gonna start with a recap from Thursday Night Football with the Packers Lions game, and then we're gonna get into our predictions for the rest of the games. Obviously, to tell you guys something came up when we were supposed to film on Wednesday, so I apologize for that. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy. Let's get right into the video. So, Alex, we are back for week 14 of the NFL season, coming off a pretty eventful Thanksgiving weekend. We had the 49ers lose again. Christian McCaffrey's season is over. And to be honest, that's probably the nail in the coffin for their season. There was a rumor that he could be back for the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to get there. The Vikings barely won their game. The Commanders actually got themselves going again with a dominant performance against the Titans. Kirk Cousins crapped out again. Trevor Lawrence done for the season after that brutal hit. The Bears with a horrendous loss, and then obviously your Packers beating the Dolphins. Chiefs barely winning. What are your thoughts going into Week 14?
No, well, look, I mean, there's a lot to break down, and you can go through each situation you mentioned, and there's so much to take from that. And I'll
Yep.
start with San Francisco, like you did, where it's unfortunate for that team, where McCaffrey all year long was basically sidelined with injuries, whether it be his calf, his Achilles, now a knee injury he suffered in Buffalo. It's really been a tough year for San Francisco. It's been a long season. It's been a lingering season, and the injuries really sum it all up. I mean, again, this team is very good. We know that,
Yep.
but what has held them back are the injuries. Brock Purdy being out for a period of time, Nick Bosa being out for a period of
Yep.
time, George Kittle being injured during the season, Brandon Ayuk being done for the year with a torn ACL. Debo Samuel getting injured and also, having to be in the hospital for a period of time. And then McCaffrey, Jordan Mason also done for the year with injuries. Shall I continue? There are
Yeah.
so many injuries for this 49ers team that it's really insane to see how banged up this roster is after being 3 points away from winning a Super Bowl, this past February. So, it really says a lot about where things are at for the
Yep.
49ers. And unfortunately, with now two straight losses by double digits, giving up 30 plus points in each, they're 5-7. And with how crazy that division is, and with Seattle now having the first place spot and momentum, Arizona kind being back and forth, and the Rams somewhat still alive. I don't see it for the 49ers, unfortunately. I mean,
Yeah.
hopefully McCaffrey can come back this year if they make the playoffs. But if we're being realistic, San Francisco this year is not a playoff team.
No.
So they're done once the playoffs start, which means that Christian McCaffrey this season is done altogether. Um, the Vikings are winning games in the most ugliest ways possible.
Yep.
Yeah, they've won five straight. Four of the five wins have been by single digits. And this past Sunday versus Arizona was one of the worst,
Oh my
worst
God. Yeah.
wins for the Vikings this year, if not the worst win. It was bad enough that they blew that, double digit lead to Chicago with 2 minutes to go and they had to come back in overtime. The Vikings were down consistently against Arizona and then pulled ahead with a game tying touchdown and game winning extra point with 73 seconds to go. Sam Darnold got dropped more times than apples and oranges and things that you drop when you are trying to get quickly into your car when it's freezing outside from the grocery store. No, it was
Yep.
bad. It was really really bad. And look, they found a way to win, sure, but Arizona had more or just as many chances as the Vikings to punch in into the end zone, and they couldn't do it.
Yep.
It was more of an Arizona loss not being able for them to take advantage than the Vikings themselves having opportunities and just absolutely blowing it.
Yep.
So Vikings another ugly win, and we'll see if they can take down Kirk Cousins. Where yeah, he comes in after having a horrific showing himself last week, 4 picks, and he returns to Minnesota after being the quarterback there for the Vikings for several seasons. So we'll see how it goes. You would hope the Vikings win because Atlanta's bipolar in more ways than
Yep.
one. And Atlanta has gone from a team where, okay, they're probably going to win the division to I'm not too sure because they can't play football right now.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they can't. Their
we'll
kicker
see.
can't. Their kicker can't. Who can't even kick a field goal right now.
Well, I mean, he can't kick a field goal. Cousins can't lead the offense. I mean, it's an absolute train wreck. Their defense is getting blown out, left to dry. It's really ugly. So we'll see how that goes this week. But look, I mean, again, you mentioned some other stuff. The Packers' nice Thanksgiving win from start to finish. They dominated. Of course, we'll talk about the Thursday night game for Green Bay, where it was
Yep.
a back and forth game, probably the game of the year, but a really narrow, gutsy win for
Yep.
Detroit in the end. Again, we'll talk about that. But look, a couple things else that I want to mention briefly. I think Al Shahir, Aziz Al Shahir, he is easily the most dirtiest player right now in the
Yep.
National Football League. And this is a guy who's no angel to begin with. He has a record of dirty hits. It's one thing for him to get suspended 3 games, knocking the snot out of Trevor Lawrence. Horrible cheap shot.
Yep.
Lawrence has the right to slide down for there, and Shahir just goes headhunting, and unfortunately, that will cost Trevor's season now with the concussion on top of the sprained AC joint.
Yep.
So he's done for the year. Jacksonville's a mess to begin with. It makes no sense to bring him back after 4 games. And on top of the fact, with the Jaguars dropping to 2-10 in that loss, and also losing Lawrence for the season, it just further adds insult to injury, no pun intended, on this really
Yes.
bad Jacksonville team. But no, I mean, Al Shahir's a guy. He's dirty. He's cheap.
Yep.
He's nasty. That is now the 5th time in this year and last year where he's been fined for cheap shots. 2 times
Good.
last year, 3 times already this season. So he's a very dirty player. Honestly, I would have suspended him for the rest of the season. Even
Yeah.
if you could suspend him for the playoffs, I would do that too. And this is a guy who has to really get his act together. And if this continues next season, the year after, throughout his career, I think you should, severely consider a ban because
Yeah.
it's really out of control to a certain extent.
Somebody on social media, and this was before they confirmed how long Lawrence was going to be out. Somebody said that he should be suspended however long Lawrence was going to miss. That's what I
I
said.
don't I don't disagree with that either. And honestly, I mean again, and whether that includes the rest of this season, let's say Lawrence for whatever reason because of his, shoulder injury, let's say he can't play the first month or whatever of next season, I think that should apply to that as well.
Yep.
So, no, I mean it's awful, but hopefully, things change and he gets his act together and all the best to Trevor Lawrence. And then Matt Eberflus, I thought Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, was a bigger clown. Matt Eberflus is the ultimate clown to lose his job in Chicago and to go out in the most embarrassing way, though he does it with a straight face. I mean,
Yeah.
this is a guy that was the dumbest play call in the history of play calls. You're down 3, Caleb gets sacked, all of a sudden with a timeout in your pocket, just let 26 seconds melt down.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, with 7 seconds to go, you basically throw a Hail Mary and it doesn't work out and Detroit barely wins. I mean, I have a 1-year-old cousin who could have called the timeout faster than Matt Eberflus. No, I mean it was ridiculous. It was awful. And this guy has the gall
Yeah.
to afterwards say, "Oh, I like what we did there." So you lose in the most embarrassing way possible on Thanksgiving to a team who's the best in your division and the conference. You have a chance to win that game, save your job, and somewhat try to salvage your season.
Yep.
And you say, "Oh, I like what we did there, even though it was awful." Next day, gone, goodbye. So look, I mean, you knew he was on the way out eventually. I mean, it clearly showed he didn't want to be there no more because of that. But no, I mean, what an absolute joke. I mean, he is the ultimate turkey of the year, no question about it. And I mean, it is absurd how
Yep.
bad that was. But for Chicago, losing 6 straight and firing their coach and being an absolute dumpster fire, I'm okay with that. So keep it going, Chicago. Thanks.
Yeah. One thing I do want to ask you: do you think Caleb Williams might look better with a new coach?
Depends who the coach is. I
True.
mean, I don't know what Chicago's planning on doing in the offseason. Right now, their offensive coordinator is the interim, and at this point, Chicago's just playing for pride. Their season's done.
We know
They're
how
they are
Chicago is.
finished.
They'll have some stupid hiring of a coach. Chicago's known for these stupid decisions.
Again, Eberflus was bad enough. Knowing them, they'll bring back Jay Cutler as their coach, and that would be an absolute disaster going forward because Jay Cutler, he was the greatest Chicago quarterback of all time, Jason, especially in the
Yep,
playoffs.
yep,
So yeah, sure. But look, I don't know what direction they're gonna go. I doubt they're gonna have their offensive coordinator Thomas Brown as the full-time head coach starting next year. I don't know what they do, but it depends on who they potentially hire to replace Eberflus full time. That would be a question I can answer once that move is made
yep.
eventually, if it is. So that's that. And then again, briefly, I know we're pressed for time, but for Kansas City, the script can't get any better for them. It is absurd.
They're never gonna
12
beat though.
seconds.
They're never gonna beat those script allegations.
No, no, no. They are the worst 11-1 team I've seen, and they're back-to-back defending Super Bowl champions.
Yep,
So they're just not good. And look, Pat Mahomes has the right to be upset about, oh, I want blowouts. I'm not happy with the way we're playing, and just getting by. Well, if that's the case, Patrick, you also have to step up too.
yep,
Although Mahomes had a really good game that day on Black Friday, 300 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, became the all-time passing touchdown leader in franchise history. But we also look at Patrick, and he has struggled a lot this year.
yep.
And if we look at the loss to Buffalo, he's the one who threw the costly pick towards the end. So, Patrick, yeah, you're not wrong, but you also have to put your 2 cents in too. This
Yeah.
and the thing is, this Chiefs defense, which was the strong point last year, which got them by briefly, has been somewhat of the weak point in these late
Yep.
moments where they're up by double digits and they're blowing leads and almost losing and winning by 2, 3 single-digit points. So
Yeah.
it's absurd. And then
One
what
thing
makes it more absurd?
sorry to cut
Yeah,
you up, but one thing I want to
go
add in
ahead.
about this Chiefs team is you bring in DeAndre Hopkins and he's not getting used that much. It's a very weird situation. He should
It is.
easily be your number one guy.
And again, you lose Rice for the year with a torn ACL. Hopkins is an all-around talent. There's a reason why you got him from Tennessee of all places.
Yep.
So I think it's absurd. So Kansas City's doing it to themselves, but I think because they know that the script and Taylor Swift and the whole crew is in their back pocket,
Yep.
if they can do this and they can just scratch and claw their way, oh, they're the greatest team ever because they won 3 straight Super Bowls and they're the first team ever to do that, even though they would do it in the most ugly way possible if that
Yep.
happens, God forbid. So, look, I think it's absurd. And then, of course, how that game ended. The Raiders are just a joke. That we know. There is more reliance on gambling in Las Vegas
Yep.
than gambling on the Raiders to win games in
Yeah.
Las
Well,
Vegas
look,
or in general.
I just don't buy the fact that you have a couple great drives like the Raiders did, amazing drives, and then all of a sudden something like that happens to end the game. I just
Well,
don't
well,
buy that.
not just something like that to happen, but this is a professional football team.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, 12 seconds to go, down by 2, you're cruising, you're driving. The Chiefs are crapping their pants, and all of a sudden, the offensive lineman, the center, forgets how to snap a ball.
Yep.
He thinks he's snapping the ball all the way up to Vancouver, Vancouver, Canada, basically. And I mean, O'Connell has to scramble around like a rag doll, trying the best he can, and that was it. It was absolutely absurd. So again, whether it be a narrow walk-off field goal, a crazy botch like that, whether it be Taylor Swift cheering in the bleachers with her pom-poms, and now that she and Travis are engaged, and of course they have to have more love stories and have to have lots of fun before their marriage.
Yep.
It's absurd. So the Chiefs find ways to win barely, except to thankfully so far, except the Buffalo.
Yep.
And if I'm being honest with you, and I really hope it's the case, Buffalo's the better team than KC this year. But Baltimore was the better team than KC last year. And of course, the script folks said, all right, let's have Baltimore play their worst game of the
Yep.
season in the AFC Championship game. How does that happen? Except for a script.
Yep.
So Yeah, so again, the script was there, and the script will probably get them forward more. So I know I'm ranting a lot, but that's how I go with the Chiefs. I can't stand this
Yep.
team. I mean, I look, I like Patrick Mahomes. I really do like Pat Mahomes, honestly. I just can't stand the bias and the favoritism and the overall, one-sidedness that's going to Kansas City because the way that they've won these last two Super Bowls and the way that they're playing this year, it's sickening to see them this well, and it's sickening to just have this be on, through and nonchalantly no one's really has hesitations about how this is all taking place.
Yep. No, 100%. I don't. I Before we get into the games, I don't. Is there anything else you wanted to add in, or are you pretty much? I
No,
think we're pretty
no,
much.
I'm all exhausted out on that one,
Yep.
Jason.
All
But
right.
yeah. So no, yeah, but no, yeah, it should be a good week hopefully this week, and obviously there's a big game to look back after Thursday.
Yep. So obviously, guys, and I'll start by before we go into this. Obviously, we're late. We're a little late on this video. To anybody who's watching, um, I had some stuff going on, but we still wanted to get this to you guys. So, instead we're gonna recap a little bit. So, obviously as a Packers fan, Alex, what are your thoughts coming off of Thursday night football last night?
Well, look. I mean, the Packers are a good team, and they're a team where now with that loss they can't win the division. But like last year, they're a sneaky wild card team.
Yep.
And that's how they're going to get into the postseason this year for a second straight season. So I'm very happy with Jordan Love these past couple of weeks. He's really showed a lot. He's really been growing a lot.
Yep.
Again, he came off the knee injury. He came off the groin injury. That really hampered him, and I think they rushed him back after the knee injury. But I think Jordan, after a couple, tough moments this year, I think he's been able to sort of, get himself comfortable, get himself in the right gear, be able to, be the Jordan Love we saw the second half last year. And honestly, I think Jordan Love is proving that he's a second half season quarterback.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is that, yeah, it might be ugly, it might be frustrating, he might be rusty to begin a season, he might get banged up to begin a season, but in the second half, after Thanksgiving or Thanksgiving and beyond, he turns it up and he's Mr. Clutch in the big moments.
Yep.
So I really like how he's able to lead this team in the second half of the season, where playoff stakes are on the line and the Packers are looking to further prove themselves as a solid playoff team and competitor for a championship. So they lost, unfortunately, on Thursday, but I'm very happy with the overall product from Jordan Love and how well the Packers played. Unfortunately, it just shows that Detroit's the better team. Dan Campbell, I said this, I think maybe last week, or I said this recently. I don't remember when I said this, but I said this, on Friday morning to a colleague of mine. I think Dan Campbell right now is the best coach in the National Football League. There is
Completely
no
agree.
question about it. And this is a guy who has turned this team around in a remarkable way. Last year, of course, almost making the Super Bowl. This year, they're the best team in football right now. They're the best team in the NFC, on top of being number one in the North Division. So I think Dan Campbell for sure is the best coach in football based on how well his team is doing. But that 4th and 2, what guts! I
It
mean,
is a
absolute guts,
ballsy move because if you don't, if you,
beyond
I
gutsy.
mean, if and keep in mind they did that after getting stopped earlier on a fourth down.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean, and if you don't get that, you give the Packers 30 seconds to get down the field. I mean,
well,
that's
look. Well, look. Dan Campbell got criticized for going for 4th down a couple times in the NFC title game last year against San Francisco. But that also shows the gutsiness he had then,
yep.
the gutsiness he still has now. And that game on Thursday, I tell you, I mean, again, as a Packers fan, I'm sad we lost, but I have the utmost respect for the Lions. I like Dan Campbell a lot. He is an unbelievable
Oh yeah.
coach. And again, he's a guy, he's got the guts. He doesn't care what the pundits are saying. He doesn't care what folks are thinking. He doesn't care what the critics are going to, mention about him by going for it on 4th down and 2 in that situation. He got it. And you know what? Good for him and good for Detroit. And they deserve to win the game the way they did. based on how much guts they had to go for
Yep.
that play. And that shows the overall determination for this Lions team. And what gets me too, this Lions team is this overall truly a next man up mentality.
Oh
They're
yeah.
12-1. They've won 11 straight. They're now the third team to clinch a playoff berth this year, on top of KC and Buffalo. But they're hurt. Their
Yeah.
defense is banged up all over the place, but their defense is able to get big stops. Their offense on the ground and in the air able to convert on big fourth down plays like that. Just overall, just blow by teams to a certain extent.
Yep.
This is a really good Lions team with lots of good depth, and that's thanks to their head coach Dan Campbell with how he constructs his roster and how he leads this team and how he has had the players buy into the
Yep.
team regardless of what role they have or could have. So
It's a
look,
weird thing for you because they're in your division, but like, dude, it's actually so hard to dislike this Lions team.
well, yeah. Again, look. Naturally, as a Packers fan, I don't like Detroit.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to be honest with you here, there's more of a soft spot for them to a certain extent because of how bad they've been
Yep.
for so long. And now that they finally have a good team, a really good competitive franchise, and not just that, they're a team that could not just make the Super Bowl this year, but win the whole thing. You know what? Honestly, if the Lions and Chiefs played each other this year in New Orleans, I'm hopping on that Detroit bandwagon as a Packers fan
Oh yeah.
because of the history that would be made, but also the fact, again, like I said before, my thoughts on Kansas City.
Yep.
So look, again, I'm someone, who's a Packers fan by default, but for someone who's also a sports broadcaster, the more I think about it, Jason, yeah, I have my favorite teams, but I'm not as much of a sports fan as I once was.
Yeah.
Now that I cover teams and report on teams and have not really a more objective view because I don't obviously, but I don't. I'm not as gung ho on being a sports fan
Yeah.
as much because I'm a sports broadcaster. If I cover a winning team, if I cover a losing team, I'm going to cover that team the same way.
Yep.
I'm going to give you good feedback, or I'm going to rip you a new one. I'm just going to be honest with you.
Yep.
So honestly, I'm more of a guy where whoever's doing well, good for you. Great. And if you're not doing well, then you know what? You'll probably get criticized, but hopefully you turn things around. So again, I am a Packers fan by default, but to a certain extent, I'm not a Packers fan that I once was, if
Yep.
that makes sense.
No,
And
100%.
you and I have known you've known me for a long time, and growing up, I was the only Packers fan in Massapequa, New York. Actually, actually, that's not true. Me and someone else in town
Yes.
were the only two Packers fans
Yeah.
in town.
And
Believe it or
I
not.
will say this actually to further prove this. This guy, I believe, probably 2 or 3 years when we first started our fantasy football league, was in the first couple leagues, and he was the only person that would ever, in the first round, draft Aaron Rodgers.
Well, yes, because I was that big of a Rodgers
Yes,
fan and
yes.
that big of a Packer fan, but also the fact that I didn't know jack squat about fantasy football the first few years. So that really, that's what just says
There's
a
a
lot.
reason he
But
never won the championship, but
yeah, right.
um,
But no, no. But look, no, yeah. Growing up, I was a huge Packers fan,
Mm.
and again, I still am a Green Bay fan.
Yep.
But I will say that I'm not as big of a fan as I once was, especially now that I cover the Vikings to a certain extent,
Yep.
and that I got to keep tabs on the Packers and the Lions and just all these teams. I just love covering sports more than being a sports fan. But
Yep.
after that side convo, look, Detroit's excellent. They're a good team. They're gutsy. They have the next man mentality. They find ways to win in ways that continue to impress you. And the thing is, I think they're going to make the Super Bowl. No
Yep.
doubt about it. I think they're going to represent the NFC. Do they win it? If they play Kansas City, I hope so. I don't know though. If they play Buffalo, I like Josh Allen, but I would rather see a Lions championship over a Bills championship
No,
personally
100.
because
Yep.
of Detroit's history. So, look, I mean, again, we'll see what happens with this Lions team, but they're coming off another great win, and they continue to prove why they're the top team to beat in the NFC.
Yep. No, 100%. We move in though to Sunday's 1 o'clock window, a game that you probably would have been like about, but honestly, I think it's going to be a lot better than people expect. A big division game. We got the Browns Steelers. What do you got in this one?
Well, look, this is a game where a few weeks ago Cleveland in the snowy forecast beat Pittsburgh, but the Browns are coming off that crazy loss to Denver,
Yep.
and then Pittsburgh is coming off the crazy win against Cincinnati. And I'll tell you, Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston both come in after throwing 400 plus passing yards last week. Russ, of course, won and Jameis lost, but
The most Jameis Winston loss known to mankind, but yes.
well, yeah, I mean, again, he throws more pick sixes than more frogs that jump into tadpoles. So it's absolutely absurd. So, but no, I mean, again, Cleveland's a team where they found a way to beat Pittsburgh, but that Pittsburgh team, even after a setback loss, knows how to respond, and that's
Yep.
been the case multiple times this year. And Pittsburgh, the way they beat Baltimore, they proved that they are the team to beat right now in that division. And after losing to the Browns, what do? They bounce back. And Russell
Yep.
Wilson has a phenomenal showing with 3 touchdown passes and 400 plus passing yards. So I think Pittsburgh has this because they're not going to let Cleveland beat them twice.
Yep.
Knowing that Cleveland's 3-9 and Pittsburgh is the top team in the North. So I think Pittsburgh wins this game. I think Jameis Winston will play well. He's somewhat proven himself to be a lot better than Deshaun Watson, even though
Yes.
Watson makes a lot more money than he does. And honestly, though, Jason, regardless of how this Cleveland team finishes the year, I would heavily consider and really think about having Jameis Winston as your starter next year. And I say that because Cleveland's a team right now where they're a mess, and
Yes.
they're a team that's sort of in this rebuilding phase. Look, Watson has been a disaster to say the least. Not just because of his off the field incident, but actually on the field he's been awful. He's been a
Yep.
horrible quarterback for them. And the fact that they're getting more offensive, success, win or loss with Jameis Winston, I think shows that Winston could
Yep.
sort of maybe resurrect his career to a certain extent. I mean, his career has been dead the whole time, guaranteed. But I think, I think he can somewhat. Well, look, think about it. It really has been. I mean,
Yeah.
he was the ultimate back and forth seesaw in Tampa. 1 year he threw 33 touchdown passes and 30 interceptions. Think about that. So,
Yeah, that's rough.
yeah, he's a guy where one game he's good and the next game he's painful to watch, and that's been
It's
the
a
case for
shame because
years.
he's a very likable guy.
He is. Oh yeah, I like him a lot. I have no problem with Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
I think he's a classy guy. I mean, man, he's obviously a lot more classy than Deshaun Watson. But
Yeah.
look. I mean, I think the Browns should consider having him as their starting quarterback next season. And for Watson, I mean, who knows what his future looks like? Also, who knows how long it will take him to recover from
I
the
heard he's
Achilles
opening up
injury.
his own massage parlor.
I'm sure he is, Jason, and I'm sure he's opening up his own massage parlor, and there's a bonus feature for lower body tendons and how to treat Achilles injuries. So no, it's I think it's something the Browns should heavily consider, knowing that Watson's future continues to be uncertain. And Winston, you've gotten more progress from him in a 3-9 year than
Yep.
you've gotten from Watson in 2-3 years, whatever it is. But no. Pittsburgh wins this game for sure. I don't see Pittsburgh losing. They're the top team to beat right now, win the division, and they're trying to further prove themselves as sort of a 3 or 4 behind the 1 and 2s in KC and
Yep.
Buffalo. So yeah, give me Pittsburgh, no doubt about it. Russ is balling out. He's having a great year. He's standing out in ways that's really been somewhat unexpected.
Yep.
Obviously, his time in Denver was not pretty. And going to Pittsburgh, you're like, why is he going here? He's
Yeah.
washed up. This will not help Pittsburgh. You know what? All the pundits who said that it wouldn't work out, I was one of them.
I was too.
I'm wrong. They're wrong.
Yeah.
And you know what? Good for us. I'm happy for Russell Wilson. Because look, I don't care much for Russell Wilson. I like him though. As a person, as a quarterback,
Yep.
as a guy, I think he's a great guy. I don't care much for him. I don't care much for the teams he's played for, but I like Russ.
Yep.
And I think it's awesome to see him on this comeback journey. So
Yeah.
him, and that will continue when they beat Cleveland and make up for the loss a few weeks ago.
Yeah. Based on how these games have been with these teams, how they've been playing lately, I actually think this is going to be a shootout, just like the Steelers-Bengals game last week. Just these two
Oh
quarterbacks.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh sure.
I would be shocked if both teams are over 30 points as well. Because the one thing about the Browns is their defense is obviously taking a step back compared to what it had been the last few years. It is definitely a rough out there for their defense.
Mhm.
And while their defense is rough, for some reason, Jameis Winston, we talk about it. He just figures out a way to get things done. He makes those big
Yeah.
plays. Jerry Judy's actually coming alive, so that's one good thing for them. Um, to be honest, I would say this to you right now: if Jameis Winston keeps that role next year, which is very possible, although he is a free agent after this year, so he is trying to, probably fight to land a contract somewhere. Um, you know, this Browns team could be decent if Jameis Winston's the guy next year because I don't think Deshaun Watson's going to be
Yeah.
ready for the start of the season. I don't. Athletic. He's injury.
Well, 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 that, but also, Jason, if I really think about it as well, whether or not he's a free agent this year, I don't think a team is willing to take a risk on Jameis Winston
True.
other than the Cleveland Browns.
True.
Because, look, I, I don't know what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers and the
Well,
Jets
that's
this
what I was
offseason.
gonna say.
Maybe
If Rodgers is gone from there, maybe the Jets look at Winston.
yes, but I don't think they would go that route because Winston is just as shaky as Rodgers this year. I'm not comparing Rodgers to Winston. Obviously, Rodgers is light years better. But if we're looking at the teams, both are 3-9. If we look at the quarterback situation, it's not much of a difference. Yeah,
Yeah.
Winston is putting up better numbers, but if you put Winston with this Jets team, nothing much changes. I mean, heck, they can't win with Rodgers. They're not going to win with Jameis Winston.
True.
So,
Honestly, the,
so
the only other team besides the Browns that I could legitimately see looking at a Winston is the Giants.
yes, I can see that potentially, but I mean, maybe the Giants with the direction they're in, maybe they stay with Drew Lock. Maybe they give him a year, or maybe I think we've mentioned this a couple times. If the Giants had brains, they would try to pursue Justin Fields
Yep.
because Justin Fields is a guy who can really stand out with someone like Malik Neighbors.
Yep.
And if the Giants have a good quarterback and they actually fix up that Swiss cheese defense once in a while, I think they can actually be a productive team. The
Yep.
problem for Justin, obviously, is that he's in Pittsburgh and he's sitting behind Russ, who's playing great. It makes no sense to harbor Justin Fields on Pittsburgh if he's going to ride the bench.
Yep.
Where last season he was in Chicago when the Bears screwed him over. So I think the Giants are better off getting someone like Justin Fields, although maybe Cleveland makes a push for Justin Fields.
Yep.
So look, I don't know if Winston would leave. I think the only option that going for him right now is Cleveland because Cleveland has seen him produce for them, and not knowing what Cleveland will be next year, they have nothing to lose by adding Winston if Watson cannot play by week 1.
Yep. No, 100% agree. But yeah, I am gonna go the Steelers in this one, in what should be a really fun game. Actually, we got time for one more in this first half. Game that's gonna put everyone to sleep. We got the Saints and the Giants. What do you got here?
Jason, this might put people in comas for a month. This is going to be such a bad game. Unfortunately, Taysom Hill tore his ACL, so no fun in that spec of things. And
That's really
honestly,
bad for
that
them because at this stage of the season, he won't be ready for the start of next year.
but also the fact that he was probably the only fun thing to think about for this game.
Oh, 100%.
Because the Saints are a train wreck, obviously. Even though they've been somewhat better since they fired, Dennis Allen, they're still a team that's not making the playoffs and they're going nowhere. The Giants, we all know they suck. I mean, that is no secret. They do.
Yeah.
A blind person would be able to tell you the Giants stink. That's how bad they are. So, unfortunately, the Italian stallion, Tommy DeVito, probably
Did
won't
not
play.
work out.
Unfortunately, I like him a lot, Tommy. I
Mm.
feel that I I think Johnny Fontaine, his agent, might get whacked now. I don't know, but I mean, it is yeah, it's gonna be a long
It
couple weeks for the
it took
Giants.
a
It's gonna be
second to pick up on what you meant by getting whacked. I'm gonna be real.
yep, that's right, baby, The Godfather. Anyway, um, look. Look, I think it's going to be a long 5 weeks for the Giants to end this
Yep.
year. The same way it's going to be a long 5 weeks for Jacksonville, a long 5 weeks for the Raiders, a long 5 weeks for the Jets, a long 5 weeks for a lot of teams.
Yep.
And the Giants, look, I mean, Tampa Bay knocked the snot out of them 30-7. New Orleans, to begin the year, put up 40 points in each of their wins. Now, guaranteed that was weeks 1 and 2, but they were against Carolina and at the time a really bad Cowboys team.
Yep.
If New Orleans finds a way to put up 30 points in this game, I wouldn't be surprised because
Yeah.
of the Giants of how bad they are. So honestly, if the Giants lose 30-7 to another NFC South team, don't be too shocked by it. The point is the Giants lose by double digits. There's no way they're winning this
Yeah.
game.
The Giants got to figure something out, by the way, because with the tension building up, the Giants are on pace for a very short tenure from Malik Neighbors with this organization.
Well, again, you had that with Kadarius Toney. You've had that with a couple guys these past few seasons.
Darius Toney
The
may have
thing
been
is,
for the better.
yes, for the better. But at the time coming in, he was a very highly touted prospect.
Yes.
And was a first round pick out of Florida by the Giants.
Yep.
So at the time it didn't make sense. But yeah, you're probably right. Anyway, again, if the Giants really want to turn this thing around quickly, if they want to make Malik Neighbors happy, get him a quarterback who can actually throw the ball.
Yeah.
And his name is Justin Fields. So
Yeah.
I think the Giants would be smart if they made a pitch for Justin Fields. How they do that, we'll have to wait and see. But the Giants have cap to trade for Justin Fields. The Giants have enough cap to fit in 5 fat people.
The
So,
Giants really don't have a lot of high contract guys now that Daniel Jones is gone.
yeah. Yes, and Saquon is, laughing his way to the bank now in Philadelphia in more ways than one. But look, the Giants continue to be a train wreck. That will continue this week. And I assume the game's at good old MetLife Stadium.
Yes, it is.
Of course it is. Yep. Okay, so they're definitely not winning. So, look, I mean, no. So, I mean, again, whether it be on the road or at home, especially at home, they're not winning.
No. 100%.
Again, I've said this a lot of times. I'll keep saying this. MetLife Stadium is a dump.
Yep.
It is an ultimate dump. I wouldn't let the Big Apple Circus perform at MetLife Stadium. That's how bad. No, seriously, that's how bad it is.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, they get the circus every week with the Jets and Giants.
Yep. No.
So,
100%. But
look,
yeah.
I mean, yeah. The Giants, they're done. This is the first of 5 very painful long weeks.
Yep. Well, the whole season's been painful, but yeah, hopefully the Giants have a first overall pick to look forward to. But yeah, this game's gonna suck.
And also that Brian Dable gets fired.
Yes, that too. So Alex, the next game I want to get into, in my opinion, coming off the loss to you guys last week, is a must-win for the Dolphins. If they lose, I think their season's pretty much over. We got the Jets, Dolphins. What do you got in this one?
This should be a win for Miami, and if they don't win, then they definitely don't deserve to be in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Tua Tagovailoa, coming back from injury, has been stellar. And even though the Dolphins lost and the Packers were in control from start to finish on Thanksgiving, Tua still threw 365 passing yards and 2-3 touchdowns. Tua is unbelievably good right now. And look, it's really tough to see him get hit in the head now 3 times and suffering 3 concussions, and he's battled so many injuries. He can't, keep playing like this. He can't be dealing with that consistently. But it's good to see him play so well that Miami has won 3 of their last 4 since he returned. So Look, I think it's something where obviously they have the win. The Jets are a disaster. I mean, Joe Douglas is gone. Robert
Yep.
Saleh's gone. Woody Johnson has more conniptions every single week, and Aaron Rodgers. The fact that there's rumors about him being benched potentially
Yep.
really shows how much of a train wreck this has been. The Dolphins need to take advantage of this situation to get themselves back into the playoff conversation. So I think they'll do that again based off how well Tua was playing. And at the same time, look, the Dolphins have had a lot of time to recover
Yep.
after that Green Bay loss. And the Jets had another horrific loss this time to
I mean, they
Seattle.
had the best half of the season in that first half, and then they just did nothing after.
And Rodgers threw a pick six to cost them the game again.
Yep.
So it's something where, look, I mean, again, it's been continuous disaster for the Jets. And I'm telling you, until Joe Namath dies, they'll keep on losing. So it doesn't make a difference.
Yep.
No. Miami's going to win this game. I think they'll get it. I think they'll get themselves back in the conversation. Tua looks good. Tyreek's getting more involved. You're seeing a better improvement from this defense ever since the
Yep.
3-game winning streak before losing to Green Bay. And if Seattle's defense can pick up a pick six, if the Vikings defense can pick up a pick six this year at the expense of Aaron Rodgers, why can't the Dolphins do
Yep.
that too? So yeah, give me Miami, no question about it.
No, 100%. Dolphins win this one easily. We're getting closer and closer, in my opinion, to Rodgers. The end of Rodgers' tenure as a Jet. I just am having a lot
There
of
is
doubt. I'm having
no
a lot of
way he's
doubts.
coming back.
Yeah, no, he's just
Well,
if
look,
they
I
bring
mean,
it that if they bring him back, that's just such a Jets move, a stupid move.
it is. And look, I mean, I part of me wouldn't be surprised if he did come back,
Yep.
but it's going to go one of two ways. Obviously, Rodgers just retires and calls it a career, or he comes back for next season.
Could you imagine he leaves
If
the
he
Jets,
plays,
goes to the Giants? I'm gonna mess with another New York franchise.
that would not no, that would definitely not happen. If that did happen, that'd be great. I would laugh my butt off if that happened, but no. Well, look, I mean, he's made it clear
Yeah.
that he either wants to retire or play with the Jets next year. He has said that multiple times. He has said that on the Pat McAfee show consistently. And look, I mean, again, he says he's mulling his future, but if he comes back next year, his first choice is the Jets.
Okay.
Why? I don't know. He's crazy. But for some reason, he wants to play there still. Again, he's crazy. So,
Well, I mean, I knew you knew he was crazy the moment he did his darkness retreat and locked himself isolated in a dark room for a long period of time. But
yes,
no
but
sane
the fact
person
that
does that.
yes, but Jason, further proof is that you wanted to be traded to the Jets,
True.
and after having a horrific tenure with the Jets,
Yes.
you want to stay with the Jets. That's like saying, I like getting punched in the face every single week. So because I like getting punched in the face every single week for 1 year, I want to get punched in the face every single week for another year.
Yeah.
And then another year. And then until I die. So Aaron Rodgers might be there until he dies.
Yeah, you know what's crazy? Zach Wilson actually played a little bit better than Rodgers has.
Well, Jason, the scary thing out of all of this, and I saw the stat recently, Zach Wilson and Sam Darnold both have higher winning percentages as Jets quarterbacks than Rodgers does.
Which says a lot because we know how much of a disaster both were as Jets.
Darnold was a disaster. Part of it was the system, and
Yes.
part of it was Darnold being a clown sometimes.
Yeah.
Wilson was an ultimate joke.
Yeah.
And Rodgers coming in there and winning less games than both of those guys, yikes.
Yeah.
So, look, I mean, again, it's something where it's going to be a long offseason for them. It's going to be a long 5 weeks. They're not going to beat Miami this week. And, again, the fact that Rodgers wants to stay there, you know what? You get what you deserve then.
Yeah,
I don't
you
know
you
why
can't
you
feel
would want to
bad.
stay there.
Yeah, you can't feel bad.
Yeah. So you know what? Complain, throw pick sixes, have Woody Johnson, crap his diaper every single week. I don't care. I really don't care.
Yeah,
I mean, again, I love making fun of the Jets, and Aaron Rodgers, who again was my favorite player growing up,
yeah,
is giving me more reason to make fun of the Jets every
yeah,
single time he takes the field for them. And if he does it again next year, then I'm going to have my popcorn every single Sunday.
yeah. No, 100%. We moving though to the next game. Dolphins win that easily. There's not too much more to
Yep.
say. I think I actually might be a game that's you're gonna be shocked to hear this. Might be worse than the Giants Saints game, and I'm gonna slowly tell you this just so you could slowly piece together how bad this is. Mac Jones and the Jacksonville Jaguars against Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans. What do you got here?
Uh, this one's an ugly one too. But the Giants are just more fun to make fun of. So that's why the Giants are worse.
True.
Why that game's going to be worse. Jacksonville we know stinks. Tennessee we know stinks. Yeah, we know the Saints aren't good, and yeah, we know the Giants aren't good. But again, I like making fun of the Jets and Giants because they've been bad for so long. And for us being both from New York, we just expect this.
Yeah, it's
And
true.
it's awesome to see this continual clown show year after year. I kind of look forward to making fun of these teams every single week.
Yep.
So, you know what? Let this be the worst game of the year or the worst game of the week between Saints and Giants because of the Giants.
Yeah.
But no, I mean this is going to be ugly. I mean Mac Jones hasn't been awful this year for Jacksonville actually, but look, this is a game where you have a team that's 2-10. You have Tennessee who is also terrible, but for some reason they can compete against some teams and they got blown out by double
Yeah.
digits to Washington and Detroit. So, look, I mean, I really don't know. Like with the Giants, they're going to lose because they're going to lose. With the Jets, they're going to lose because they're going to lose.
Yep.
The Jaguars could lose because they're going to lose. The Titans, the same thing.
Yep.
Look, I don't want to resort back to the old tie scenario.
We're back
but,
to the tie.
but honestly, Jacksonville is so much worse, and there's so much uncertainty on whether Mac Jones can keep this up for the next 5 weeks that if Jones craps out, then C.J. Beathard comes in as the quarterback for Jacksonville. So there's not much
Oh
going for
God,
them to
that's
begin with.
terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, and then for Tennessee, yeah, we know about Will Levis already. We know about Mason Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer already.
Yep.
And we know that this Titans defense is also a shell of a team. So we have two joke franchises playing each other. One clown show has to win, or both of them are going to tie and shake hands. You know what I'm saying? You know I'm going tie. But
Yep.
if I'm being honest with you, and for the record, I'll go with Tennessee as I really, really hold my nose by doing so.
Yeah. I'm going Tennessee in a really, really ugly game as well.
Yeah.
But I somehow do think Will Levis is just a tad better than Mac Jones.
Slightly, yes.
Yes.
And again, there's not much to say there about that, but slightly.
Yes.
Although actually, now that I think about it, I was going on ESPN or whatever, just looking at Trevor Lawrence's stats because I was writing a story about the injury,
Yep.
and it showed me the next game they have, which of course is Tennessee, and there was an option to purchase tickets for this game. Tickets were as low as $13
Oh my.
for a football game.
That's insane.
The Jets cost you $50 to $70 to watch that crap at MetLife. The Giants cost you 2 arms and 1 leg, and they're worse.
Yep.
Titans Jaguars starting at $13.
That's insane.
Honestly, I should be able to go there for free because of how bad that game's gonna be.
Yeah. No, I know. But yeah, really ugly game. But I will give the edge to the Titans for the sake of our sanity and everyone else's. Let's move on though. Kirk Cousins returns to Minnesota. We got Falcons Vikings. What do you got here?
Jason, if I'm being honest with you, we're gonna have a Vikings win in the ugliest way possible for a 6th straight week. Kirk Cousins is coming off a horrific showing, but the Vikings are, even though they won. So I think Atlanta is going to be in a close game because of how unreliable and unsteady the Vikings have been after starting 5-0.
Yep.
And look, again, we know how bad the Falcons are. They're losing by double digits. They're getting blown out. They're really foiling their offense. Kirk Cousins got, through those 4 picks. It was really bad for them. They've really blowing things. They're blowing things up. The
Yep.
Vikings are the most unimpressive 10-2 team right now in the NFL. And like I said before, 4 of their 5 straight wins have been by double digits. Their win against Tennessee was by 10 points. Their wins against Jacksonville, Chicago, Indianapolis, and Arizona
Yep.
were all by single digits. The Cardinals they beat by 1 point last week.
Yep.
They could have scored 5 touchdowns against Arizona, and they scored a game tying touchdown and game winning extra point with 73 seconds to go in the game. That was the first time they led, Jason,
That's just
against Arizona.
unacceptable for a team with that many wins.
So so the Vikings are an ugly 10-2 team. The defense is eh. The offense has been not great. And if you think about it, it's not the surrounding pieces. Sam Darnold is just a meh quarterback.
Yes.
He's just a meh quarterback. I mean, really. And again, he started great. He was awesome to begin the year. But Sam Darnold came back to earth and was his usual self, and you saw that really against Jacksonville, even though they won that game. That was the worst win all year long. I
Yeah.
mean, John Parker Romo made all their points off field goals. Darnold had more picks than the Vikings had touchdowns, which means they had no
That's
touchdowns in that game. So I mean, look again, the Vikings are an ugly 10-2 team, but they're finding ways to win. And Atlanta's a team where they are blowing it up. So if the Vikings can narrowly beat a Cardinals team that's shaky, they can definitely beat a narrow team in Atlanta that's very shaky.
yep.
No, not knowing what we're getting from Kirk Cousins in his return to play the Vikings. So I'm
Yep.
going with the Vikings because of the fact that they're winning these games, versus crummy teams. But Jason, after this week, they have Chicago again at home, where that could be scary too. And then after that, they got Seattle in Seattle. The Packers come to town, and they play and they play the Lions again,
Yep.
which are going to be 3 losses
Yep.
because if they're barely beating these really bad teams that are below 500 or just a game or two above the 500 mark, they're not beating first place Seattle. They're not beating the Packers, who are right behind them, and they're definitely not beating Detroit. So it's going to be an ugly end to the regular season for the Vikings, even though they win again by single digits versus Atlanta. That's
Yep.
what I think will happen.
Yeah. For me, it's kind of a shame because going into this game, with how the season started, you thought you probably would have had a lot more to talk about with this game. You thought it would be a really, really good game, and I think it's just kind of going to be a bit of a sloppy game just based on how the
Yeah.
quarterbacks have been going lately.
Yep.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's a shame to say that the biggest story going into this game really just feels more like Kirk Cousins return to Minnesota. That really, outside of that, I don't really have any interest in this game. Um,
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, you're not wrong. It is Cousins' return. Of course, he was a loved quarterback for several years here, and he had his moments like always, but he was a good quarterback for this team.
yep,
He was a very well respected quarterback for this team, and I like Kirk Cousins. I think he's a great guy. He's one
yep,
of the better guys in the entire National Football League. So I like him as a guy.
yep,
I think the fact that times were changing, just made sense for him to move on, and he has been awful
yeah,
recently. And again, the 4 picks tells you the whole story. This past loss to the Chargers. So I mean, again, that's the only thing
yeah,
going. And Kirk Cousins could play good. He could ball out. He could throw a game-winning touchdown pass, or he could have a similar result.
yep,
And if the Vikings win this game, they're going to win again based off their defense and the last minute scores of a field goal, touchdown, whatever, by the skin of their teeth again.
yeah,
So again, I think the Vikings spoil his return, but in very ugly fashion.
yep,
You're right. There is not much to be excited about this game besides this return. And again, this could be a game where even though he's returning Cousins, it could be a very bad game for him. And if it goes really badly, then after this game, he might be on the bench.
yeah. For one thing, for the Vikings, I will say in this game, I guess one thing that needs to be talked about. you have to get Jefferson involved. I don't know what's going on. Justin Jefferson is just not involved in these games at all. Um,
It
it's
doesn't make sense.
yeah, it is a problem. But last thing I will say for the Falcons, in a time where the Buccaneers were briefly struggling and they had a chance, keep in mind they have the tiebreaker locked in because they won both games. In
Yeah.
a scenario where Evans was out, all these guys were banged up for the Bucks. You should have been picking up ground, but instead you forgot how to play football.
Yeah, no, no. I mean, it is really bad as to how Atlanta has blown this division lead.
Yeah.
And again, this is a division again. Every single year, it's one of the worst, if not the worst, in the
Yep.
NFC and in football. Because the Saints are bad, the Panthers forget about it. Tampa and Atlanta are mostly 8-win teams, 9-win teams at most during the season, and it just gets ugly.
Yeah.
So, for Tampa to be alive still, even though Atlanta has the tiebreaker, that really shows how bad it's been going for the Falcons.
Yep.
And it is really turns out to be a bad ending where they've choked this lead and missed the playoffs. You might see some changes quickly. I mean, they've got a first-year coach, and that coach might be out of town after 1 year. Who knows?
It's very possible.
So, I mean, yeah, it's bad. We'll see what happens though.
Yeah, I don't have much more to say. We move into another game that, I think we know the winner of this game, but it's gotten a little more interesting just because Bryce Young's probably playing the best he has in his career these last
Mhm.
couple weeks, almost beating the Chiefs, having a good game last week, and they were probably going to beat the Bucks, but Chuba Hubbard fumbled in overtime. We got the Panthers Eagles. What do you got here?
Well, look, I mean, Philadelphia should win this game. Saquon's going to have 203 touchdowns probably. He's going to ball out again. I mean, he is unbelievable. Saquon is furthering himself to be the best back right now in the NFL. And
Yeah.
again, I say that because of, Christian McCaffrey being injured. But Saquon is also just playing out of this world.
Yeah.
Saquon might make a last-minute case for MVP. That's how well
Yes,
he's
it's
playing.
possible.
So I think that's going to be more than enough for Philadelphia to cruise to another win. And again, they're a team where it's all Saquon. Nick Sirianni's really not still a good coach.
No.
If you put a better coach there, then Philadelphia is a
Yeah.
more convincingly better team.
Yeah, and also for
Dan
Philadelphia,
Campbell,
both their receivers, Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, are having down years.
down years, and they've been hurt a lot too. Keep
Yes.
that in mind.
Yes.
So those injuries don't help why they've had bad down years this year. But at the same time, look, I mean, it's something where Philadelphia is a very unimpressive 10-win team as well, but they're more impressive because of Saquon doing what he's been doing.
Yep.
Nick Sirianni would get completely outcoached by Dan Campbell if the Lions and Eagles meet this year in the NFC title game, let alone Detroit would be at home. So, yeah, Dan Campbell is light years better of a coach than Sirianni, and Sirianni would look like an absolute clown. So,
yeah.
But in this game, they have Carolina, and Sirianni's a prince compared to, the Panthers coaching staff.
Yep.
So, give me the Eagles for sure. Saquon's going to have a field day. I think Bryce Young will make it interesting because, again, he has the past couple weeks, and they should have beaten Tampa Bay at home. But
and they honestly
should
have beat the Chiefs.
And you're right, they should have been Kansas City too. So the fact that they're playing, single score games, 3-point games with the Chiefs and the Buccaneers, they could do it again this week.
Yep.
Even though, again, Saquon still is going to have a great game regardless, but Bryce Young might make it interesting because this Philly defense is a bit spotty at times.
Yes.
And, we've seen that a few times as well this year. So I think Philadelphia wins, but Bryce Young and company might make it a closer game than people think, like how it's been closer for them these past couple weeks.
No, yeah, 100%. We move into the final game of the 1 o'clock window, by the way. Not too much to talk about here. We got Aiden O'Connell leading the Raiders out against the Buccaneers. I mean, what do you got here?
Well, another crummy game, and a game where Tampa Bay should just clobber this team. I mean, look, the Raiders are down by 2. They fumble. The Raiders could be up by 2 and fumble the way they did. So, I mean, it just shows how incompetent Las Vegas is. And I tell you, what's so intriguing about Davante Adams, he goes from a 2-win team to a 3-win team. So what a great improvement for Davante Adams. Look, this is going to be a game where Tampa should obviously win. They'll gain ground. They're coming off a narrow win. They should have been a lot better versus the Panthers, but I think because the Raiders are a lot worse than Carolina, I think Tampa will find a way to get more comfortable. So
Yep.
expect Tampa to win, Baker and company to roar. And again, the Buccaneers are trying to still hold that ground with the Falcons in that battle for first. So if Tampa's able to get as many wins as possible, this is a gift for Tampa right now
Yes.
to keep their ground in this close division race. I think they'll do it and they'll win in a pretty convincing fashion.
Yeah, I completely agree. Honestly, there's not much more to say here. This game, it's just gonna
Yeah.
probably be a blowout. But yeah, Bucks win easy. We move into the 4 o'clock window, a game that I think's not gonna be the prettiest game, but it's a very important game because we got the Seattle Seahawks who are leading their division suddenly after some very ugly weeks of football at one point from them against the Arizona Cardinals. What do you got here?
Well, a few weeks ago, these two teams played in Washington State, and Seattle won by an ugly 16-6 score. Arizona is really starting to feel it. I think they're getting themselves kicked in the pants a bit, and this is a
Yep.
game where they're going to want to really rebound and bounce back. And honestly, they have to,
Yes.
because if Seattle wins this game, they have the tiebreaker. And on top of that, the Seahawks team, where they've been flaky a lot this year, they're all of a sudden 8-5.
Yep.
So the Seahawks right now are the only team that's above 500 in this NFC West. San Fran, like I said before, they're done this year. The Rams, I think it's going to be a little bit too much for them to bounce back with how Seattle has played and how Arizona has played all
Yep.
together this year. So, look, this is a game where both teams have to lock in and bounce back. But Seattle, one week is great, the next week they're not. I think the Seahawks, though, are finding more rhythm and form. That's for
Yep.
sure. This Seahawks team the past couple weeks has been a lot different. Yeah, again, they started 3-0 and lost a couple in a row and going on the seesaw. But we've seen something different from Geno Smith these past couple weeks. He's been more locked in.
Yep.
The question is, can that again continue consistently? Where Geno looked locked in the first 3 weeks, and then shaky, and then locked in again. Maybe he's due to be shaky again. I have no idea. So again, this is a game where we're gonna have to see what finds out until the kicks, on until the game actually starts.
Yep.
But um, Arizona is going to be very motivated to bounce back, especially after losing the way they did last week. So knowing the Cardinals are at home this time, knowing that Seattle, yeah, they're on fire, but they're also shaky, knowing that both teams are shaky and we don't know what we're getting exactly once the game starts, I think we'll see a much closer game and a much more productive game offensively for both teams than what we saw a few weeks ago between these two in Seattle.
Yep.
Point is, honestly, Jason, I'm really on the fence with who I'm choosing. I really, really am. Because you could go either way. But with how close this race has been all year, and with how close it's going to be by the time week 18 comes around, where that final week could determine who makes the playoffs and who doesn't, who wins the division and who doesn't, I'm
Yep.
going with the Cardinals. I think Arizona wins this game. And I think they win by a narrow margin. They're not going to let Seattle beat them for a second time, especially this time in their own stadium. So I think the Cardinals are really going to roar back. And the last time the Cardinals had a very good win at home, yeah, was the Jets, but they blew them out big time.
Yep.
So, look, I think this Arizona offense is looking to bounce back after what was a shaky performance last week. But Seattle's a team where, they're playing well, they're playing good, but they got to go to Arizona this time.
Yep.
And Arizona this year has been good at home. So give me the Cardinals by a slim margin, and it's going to make this NFC West race more intriguing than it is already.
Yep. Yeah, I completely agree with that. I don't know. I just have a weird feeling the Cardinals are going to come out angry after a couple really, really shaky performances. Last week wasn't so much shaky. The week before was horrendous. But obviously a
Yeah.
rough way to lose last week. I think they're going to come out angry and they're going to win against this team. And look, I still don't have too much confidence in Geno Smith. Like we said, we never know what we're going to get out of Geno Smith, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that's going to continue this week. And I think the Cardinals are going to give him some issues this week. I got a feeling. Like we said, not gonna be the prettiest game, but I got
Yeah.
the Cardinals in this one. We got another game though, the second of the 4 o'clock window games. A game that, oh god, it's gonna be shaky. We got the Chicago Bears, the Chicago Bears, actually we could call them, against the injury riddled 49ers. What do you got here?
I mean, this game we knew was going to be ugly coming into the season because we all thought San Fran would whoop them.
Yeah,
Now that the 49ers are banged up and the Bears are completely, on, Neptune,
yeah,
I mean, I really don't want to watch this game. That's number one. But number two, look, I think San Fran's going to win, honestly, because of how just chaotic Chicago is. And let's not forget, this will be the first game under the new interim head coach, who's the offensive coordinator,
yep,
Thomas Brown. So we'll see how Caleb deals with that. I think Caleb will play good. He's been playing a lot better the past couple weeks, win or loss, despite the way he started his season. But look, San Francisco is still a team where even though they got blown out by Green Bay and blown out by Buffalo, those were road games in really frigid temperatures. San Fran's now home. They're back home. And yeah, they haven't been great at home either this year, but San Francisco can beat the snot
yep,
out of Chicago just by their defense alone, even if their defense is hurt.
yes,
So I think you'll see the defense really get lots of pressure to Caleb Williams. I think it'll be more frustration for Chicago. I think we'll see Brock Purdy play all right. Again, he's not 100%, but knowing that they're playing this weak Chicago defense, I think you'll see Kittle have somewhat of a solid performance. I'm
yeah,
really interested to see how their running game goes because they have a rookie now as their starter. His name is Isaac Orengo,
okay,
and he will be the starter now that McCaffrey and Mason are done for the season. We'll see how he does, and maybe he does well, and it's a good tune-up game for him against a bad Bears team. So, look, I think San Fran wins. It won't be a pretty game. It'll be ugly. San Francisco is going to win hurt, obviously, and I think they win hurt by beating a Bears team that's a lot worse.
yes. I do agree with that. It's going to be another very, very ugly game. I'm going to be totally honest, though. The one thing I will say is with how this year has went for the 49ers, don't be surprised if somehow they want to lose this game. I feel like everything that
Uh,
could go wrong has so
yeah.
far.
Oh yeah, and look, and again, I'm not ruling out Chicago snapping their skid either. Let me be clear about that. I mean, again, there's a chance Chicago could win this game too. Don't get me wrong,
Yes.
but at the same time, I just think San Fran, even with the injuries, is better than a healthy Bears team.
Yes.
Obviously, it shows because Mr. Matt Big Apple Circus Eberflus is out of a job now, and we're not going to know what we're going to get from this new coach until we see the product right away on Sunday. So, look, I think Chicago could win, but I just don't see it right now based on the circumstances entering, this
Yeah.
matchup.
No, I completely agree with that. But like we said, don't be shocked. We got the last game though, the 4 o'clock window. The Bills, who obviously have already clinched that division, against the Rams, who are still battling to keep their playoff hopes alive. What do you got for this one? I think this should
I
be
mean,
actually a fun game.
it should be a fun game, but I think we know who's winning. It's
Yes.
Buffalo, obviously,
Yeah.
and Josh Allen. And I'm saying this sincerely. I think he's the best quarterback right now in the National Football League. And look, I said before Saquon might make a case for MVP. I think Josh Allen might be the front runner right now for the
Yes.
MVP award this year. And Buffalo has been a very good team, obviously. They're very good offensively, they're very good defensively. They can have a snowstorm come their way and they're still going to win a game. So they're a very, very well built program. They're a
Yep.
very well built team. That's been the case for years. Of course, historically they're just playoff chokers.
Yep.
But they've beaten KC this year, that really fragile, script favored 11-1 KC team. But Buffalo is a very good team and they're legit. And the Rams, they might give them a challenge. Kyron Williams has had a good year all season long. We see Matthew Stafford play a lot better recently. I think this Rams offense has really improved over the past couple of weeks with, of
Yep.
course, Puka and Kupp now back healthy. Those first 5 weeks or so, it was rough because of the injuries. But, Stafford and the gang have really turned the offense around since like late October,
Yep.
early November. So I think the Rams will make it interesting, but again, it's going to be more difficult for the Rams to pull off the comeback they did, this year like they did last year, with how back and forth and how competitive the Cardinals and Seahawks have been this year.
Yes.
So I don't see the Rams making the playoffs, unfortunately, because of Seattle and or Arizona. But Buffalo continues their dominance, and again, the Bills have locked up that division already for a fifth straight season, they're now battling for the one. And I think they're going to further their case for the 1 seed and that first round bye in the AFC with a pretty comfortable win versus the Rams. And what I mean by comfortable, again, I think the Rams will make it interesting, but I still see Buffalo winning by 10 to 14 points.
Yep. Yeah. No, I completely agree. I just think the Bills and Josh Allen are going to be just a little too much for this Rams team, but I think it will
Yeah.
be interesting. Look, I like what Stafford and this Rams team have been doing lately, but they're not going to be able to compete with them. The Bills win yet again. We do have just under 8 minutes left to get to 2 games, so this one is a division matchup. We'll see. Could be an interesting one. We got the Chargers Chiefs. What do you got in this one for Sunday Night Football?
Well, I think Kansas City's going to win because of the script, but also the fact that, look, I mean, the Chargers this year have been a good team, surprisingly.
Yes.
And look, I mean, they're a team where their offense is okay. Their defense has been their bread and butter.
Yes.
And it's surprising to what we've seen the past couple of years, where every game they were giving up 30 points at least. And I think they've given up more than 20, once or twice this year now, this season on defense?
Yeah, I think so.
So, I mean, they have been a very impressive team, and they've been able to shine and grind in big ways. And Jim Harbaugh seems to be the right guy for that team, apparently. So, Look, it's something where the Chargers are going to make this a game, but we all know how it's going to end. It's Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift having the big kiss. It's Mahomes throwing 300 yards in the game. KC's going to lead by double digits, but all of a sudden, with 2 minutes left in the game, the Chargers are down by 2 points. And they have the ball inside the Kansas City 30-yard line. And the Chargers have possession. It's a snap. Oh, my goodness, they fumbled the ball. The Chiefs recovered, and the script winners give them another win. So, Jason, if that happens, call me a sidekick. But I'm not a sidekick. I just know that the NFL's rigged.
Yes.
So the point is that, KC wins. I think there's no surprise here with that. And the Chiefs, if they win, would clinch their 9th straight AFC West title. So you're going to see that. You'll see them win. How they win, the script writers will tell you how they win. I think I just told you how they're going to win the game. But the point is that this defense is going to really blow a somewhat double-digit lead. They're going to put you on the ropes again. Mahomes is going to have a rant afterwards, even though they won again. And Taylor Swift is going to sing from the suite that she's in. So, that's it. Chiefs win. Script in favor. That's it.
Yeah, I'm a big Chargers fan for this week. Let's go Chargers.
So am I. And look, I can't stand Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
I can't stand Jim Harbaugh. Harbaugh is a cheater. There's a reason why he's banned from college football for 4 years. There's a reason why he jumped to the NFL after winning the championship with Michigan.
Yeah.
One, because he knew he was guilty of cheating, and 2, the NCAA, suspended him. So, but no, Jim Harbaugh's done a very good job with this team. And honestly, he's a guy who's there for 5 years for a reason. So I think Harbaugh's done a very good job regardless of what happens this weekend. And the Chargers are a team where they're going to be in the playoffs no matter what if they lose this division.
Yep, no, 100% agree. But yeah, Chiefs do win this one. We got just under 5 minutes to cover the final game of the week. It's not one that I feel like has a lot to talk about. We got the Bengals versus the Cowboys Monday Night Football. What do you got here?
Oh my goodness gracious! Look, the Cowboys have what, 1 home win this year?
I believe.
And that was against the Giants.
Yeah.
The Bengals are a train wreck. Burrow was putting up 300 yards, touchdown after touchdown, 30 points, and they can't win games. I mean, honestly.
And it's a shame. If Joe Burrow was with any other team, he's probably the MVP.
If Joe Burrow was on the Detroit Lions are easily the best team to win the Super Bowl this year.
Yes.
Jared Goff is a good quarterback. Jared Goff has proved his worth in Detroit. Do not get me wrong when I say that. But if you put Joe Burrow on that team with that talent and those running backs and that defense when healthy, the Lions are better than Kansas City, no question about it.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt about
No,
it. And Joe
completely
Burrow
agree.
probably is the best quarterback in football. But he plays for Cincinnati. And he's got no offensive line. His defense is horrific. Cincinnati's Skyline chili looks better than their defense. And look, I've had Skyline chili. It's
Mm.
actually really good, but it looks like a toilet bowl. It really it looks like, diarrhea, but it's good diarrhea. Don't get me wrong.
I've
Point
never thought
is,
I'd hear somebody say it's good diarrhea.
yes, yes, there's always a first for everything, but it is very good Skyline chili, but it looks awful. Point is, that's what the Bengals defense looks like, even though the offense is putting up 30, 35, nearly 40 points
Yep.
in these losses. So honestly, I think about it though, and I think we might get a shootout. Cooper Rush has been okay. CeeDee Lamb has been okay. The Cowboys
Yep.
have been better though recently. So we've seen Cooper Rush play well, but he's also been okay overall. The Dallas defense has gotten a lot better ever since Micah Parsons returned from the injury.
Yep.
Jason, I hate to say this. I don't know what to expect, but I would not be surprised if Dallas won this game.
No, I wouldn't
Not
either.
because of how great the Cowboys are, but because of how bad the Bengals defense is.
Yep.
And Burrow could put up 30 points in this game. The Cowboys could somehow find a way to match it because of how bad the Bengals defense is.
Yeah.
Even though Dallas isn't the
The
greatest team
Bengals
this
are the
year.
only team that could put up 50 points and somehow lose the game.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. So, look, I think altogether, I think you'll see Dallas win. I think Burrow's going to play lights out again. The Bengals ball out offensively, but they're going to lose because Jerry Jones can't have a heart attack on
Yep.
Monday night again. And
Yeah.
hopefully part of the roof doesn't fall off. But um look, I think you'll see the Bengals lose. Burrow plays great, but it's not enough again. Dallas wins this game in a
Yeah.
very ugly fashion.
Yeah, and that would be the final nail in the coffin for the Bengals season. That would, we have a minute and a half left here. We'll raise a lot of questions for the future. Is T. Higgins going to stay? Which I'd probably say no. Will Jamar Chase even decide to stay because he's going to be a free agent? This raises a ton of questions for this Bengals team. But yeah, I think the Bengals are going down a very bad path, and honestly, this team could get blown up. It's very possible.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for watching our Week 14 NFL predictions, guys. Again, I apologize that this was late. It's just when we were supposed to film, something came up, and we couldn't do it until Friday night. So my apologies. But guys, if you are new here, drop a sub. If you guys like the video, leave a like. Also, leave a comment below with your guys' predictions for the week. But yeah, it looks like a good week of football. We're in that final 5 weeks of the regular season. And it should be interesting from here what happens. But yeah, otherwise, we will see you guys back for next week, week 15. Peace out. See you guys in the next one.